After a long time, I thought I found the one. No such thing. Turns out my perfect guy wasn't so perfect after all. I'm Eliza, 28, and I've had my fair share of garbage relationships. You know how it goes. The cheaters, the mama's boys, the ones who can't hold a job longer than they can hold a conversation. So, when Lyndon walked into my life, it felt like the universe was finally throwing me a bone. I met him at my friend Quinn's housewarming party. He was tall with these deep brown eyes that actually looked at me when I talked, not through me or at my chest like most guys. The first thing I noticed was how he actually listened. Like, genuinely listened. When I mentioned loving true crime podcasts, he didn't just nod. He asked which ones and had actually heard of them. Between us, finding a guy who shares your interests without faking it is like finding a unicorn in a Walmart parking lot. By our third date, I started thinking maybe this one was different. Lyndon took me to this little Italian place, nothing fancy, but authentic, and remembered I'd mentioned loving tiramisu, even though I said it once in passing. Who remembers stuff like that? He didn't play those stupid waiting games either. Texted when he said he would, showed up on time, all that basic stuff that somehow most men can't figure out. What really got me was how stable he seemed. After dating nothing but project guys with potential, Lyndon had his life together. Good job in tech sales, nice apartment, no roommates, and a car that didn't make concerning noises when he started it. After my last ex, who borrowed money and never returned it, this felt like hitting the jackpot. Things moved pretty fast between us. By month 2, I was staying at his place most nights. He'd make breakfast before work and kiss me goodbye like we were already married or something. My friends were getting sick of hearing about him. Honestly, Quinn rolled her eyes every time I started a sentence with Lyndon this or Lyndon that. But, could you blame me? After the wasteland that was my dating life, I finally had something good. Around month 3 is when he first mentioned wanting a traditional relationship. We were watching some reality show where the wife stayed home and the husband provided everything. That looks nice, he said. The man taking care of his woman completely. I nodded along but didn't say much. Honestly, it sounded pretty good to me too. Who wouldn't want to be taken care of? When he started paying for everything without me even offering, I didn't fight it. Dinners, movies, groceries. When I stayed over, he covered it all and seemed happy to do it. What Lyndon didn't know was that before meeting him, I'd been making decent money on OnlyFans. Nothing super explicit. Mostly lingerie pics and workout videos with some special requests for subscribers who paid extra. It wasn't something I planned to do forever, just a way to make ends meet after getting laid off from my marketing job last year. The money was good though, really good compared to any entry-level position I could find. When things got serious with Lyndon, I considered telling him about it. But then I thought, why rock the boat? We were having such a good time, and men can be weird about that stuff, even when they watch it themselves. So, I kept quiet. I was posting less frequently anyway, just maintaining enough content to keep my regular subscribers happy. And since Lyndon was covering most dates and expenses, I was actually saving money for once in my life. By month 4, Lyndon and I had settled into this perfect little routine. He'd go to work while I spent my mornings at his place, occasionally applying for marketing jobs, but not trying too hard since I didn't actually need the money. The traditional wife thing he mentioned. I was secretly loving it. Who wouldn't want a cushy lifestyle where someone else handles all the bills? Every time he'd say, "I got this," when the check came, I felt like I'd hit the relationship lottery. I still hadn't told him about my OnlyFans, though. In fact, I'd gotten even better at hiding it. I had notifications turned off when he was around, and only checked messages when he was showering or at work. My subscribers never knew the difference. They got the same flirty responses, just on a different schedule. And the money kept rolling in, building up nicely in my secret account, while Lyndon covered all our day-to-day expenses. "You're so lucky, my friend Quinn," said over coffee one day. "Most guys expect you to go Dutch these days." She was always complaining about her boyfriend, who tracked every penny they spent together on some budget app. In my head, I was thinking, maybe if you weren't such a doormat, honey. But I just nodded sympathetically and changed the subject. When Lyndon suggested a vacation to Bali, I nearly screamed. "A tropical getaway?" "Yes, please." We spent hours looking at hotels online, and every single one looked like paradise. And the best part, he never once mentioned splitting costs or asked me to chip in for my flight. This man was seriously something else. "I want to treat my queen right," he told me, kissing my forehead while we scrolled through resort options. I melted every time he said stuff like that. My last boyfriend called me dude half the time, so this was a serious upgrade. Of course, I had a few moments where I felt a twinge of guilt about my secret side hustle, especially when Lyndon would talk about how he valued honesty above everything else in relationships, but then I'd rationalize it away. I wasn't cheating on him. I wasn't meeting up with other guys. It was just pictures and videos that were already out there anyway. And besides, I was planning to shut it down eventually, just not quite yet. The week before our Bali trip, I went shopping for new bikinis and summer dresses. Lyndon gave me his credit card without me even asking. "Get whatever you need, babe," he said. While he was at work, I snapped a few pics in the new swimwear for my subscribers. They ate it up, of course, not knowing these were technically paid for by my boyfriend. The night before our trip, we were lying in bed, both of us scrolling through our phones. Lyndon suggested ordering pizza since neither of us felt like cooking. I was in the middle of doing my nails, this gorgeous turquoise color to match the Bali ocean. So, he asked to use my phone to place the order. Without thinking twice, I unlocked it and handed it over. While he was ordering, I was focusing on not smudging my pinky nail when I heard this weird change in his breathing. You know that sound when someone is suddenly holding their breath? I glanced over and saw his face had gone completely still, eyes locked on my screen. "Everything okay?" I asked, blowing on my nails. "Yeah. Just deciding on toppings," he said, but his voice sounded different. Tight. After he finished ordering, he handed my phone back and seemed quieter than usual. I figured he was just tired from work or maybe feeling pre-travel stress. We ate our pizza while watching some stupid reality show, but Lyndon barely laughed at the parts he'd normally find hilarious. When he said he was exhausted and wanted to sleep early, I didn't question it. More time for my nails to dry completely, right? The thing is, I didn't know what had happened until much later. I had no idea that, while ordering pizza, an email notification from OnlyFans had popped up on my screen. No clue that in that moment my carefully constructed perfect relationship had cracked right down the middle. I fell asleep that night dreaming about infinity pools and tropical drinks, completely oblivious to the fact that beside me, Lyndon was wide awake, searching my username on his phone, discovering exactly how I'd been spending my time when he wasn't around. I had no idea he'd even taken a screenshot of the notification and sent it to himself as evidence. The next morning, when I woke up, Lyndon was already out of bed, said he needed to check a few work emails before our afternoon flight. I noticed he was being weirdly formal with me, but brushed it off. Men and their moods, right? I spent the morning doing final packing, taking extra care with my new bikinis and sundresses. Around noon, 2 hours before our flight, Lyndon asked me to sit down in the living room. He had this serious look that made my stomach drop. "I need to talk to you about something I found last night," he said, his voice completely neutral in a way that scared me more than if he'd been yelling. And that's when he turned his phone screen toward me. There it was, the screenshot of my OnlyFans notification. My stomach didn't just drop, it felt like it fell through the floor. "Care to explain this?" he asked. My mind raced for explanations. Old account, spam, identity theft. But the username was too specific, too obviously mine. "It's not what you think," I started, using the oldest line in the book. "Really? Because I think it's exactly what it looks like," he cut me off. "I spent most of last night looking into this. Your account is still active. You've been responding to messages regularly. In fact," he paused here, looking at me with eyes I no longer recognized. "I even made a new account and messaged you. You replied in 15 minutes. Funny since you usually take 30 minutes to answer my texts." He'd caught me completely. There was no wiggle room, no gray area to exploit. "I don't understand why you're so upset," I tried, shifting to defense. "It's just pictures. It's not like I'm meeting anyone." Lyndon laughed, but it wasn't his usual warm laugh. "It's not about the pictures, Eliza. It's about the lies, the secrecy." He stood up and walked to the door where I now noticed his suitcase was already waiting. Mine was still open on the bed. "But what really kills me is that you've never once offered to pay for anything. Not a single dinner, not a movie ticket, nothing. Yet, You've been making money this whole time. You said you wanted a traditional relationship, I protested. You said you wanted to take care of me. I wanted a relationship based on honesty, he replied. And I just found out that for our entire relationship, you've been lying to me. The Bali trip is cancelled, at least for you. I'm still going, but alone. I stood there completely shocked, tears already flowing down my face. Was this really happening over something so stupid? You can't be serious right now, I said, my voice shaking. You're throwing away everything we have over this. It's just a side hustle. Lyndon looked at me like he didn't even know who I was anymore. A side hustle you hid from me while letting me pay for everything. And by the way, I saw your messages. You told someone yesterday you were working on new videos to release this week. So don't tell me this is just some old account you forgot about. I felt my face burning with embarrassment and anger. You invaded my privacy. You had no right. And you had no right to lie to me for 4 months. He shot back, picking up his suitcase. I need you to pack your things and leave. You can go back to your mom's place or wherever you were living before practically moving in here. You're kicking me out 2 hours before our flight? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The flight was always in my name, paid for with my credit card, just like everything else. He pulled out his phone and showed me screenshots of my OnlyFans page that he'd collected. You know what's funny? According to your subscriber count, you're making decent money. Probably enough to have offered to pay for dinner once or twice. I was frantically trying to think of something to say that would fix this, but nothing was coming. All I could manage was, I was going to tell you eventually. Sure you were, he scoffed. Right after I paid for our entire Bali vacation. And just like that, he walked out, leaving me standing in his apartment, surrounded by my half-packed vacation clothes. The door clicked shut, and I heard him lock it from the outside with his key. I grabbed my phone and immediately called my best friend Quinn. He found out about my OnlyFans. I sobbed into the phone. He's going to Bali without me and kicked me out of his apartment. What? That's insane, Quinn responded. It's not like you were cheating on him. What a psycho overreaction. Her validation made me feel slightly better. Yes, Lyndon was clearly overreacting. This wasn't about honesty. This was about his fragile male ego. That night, curled up in my childhood bedroom instead of a luxury resort in Bali, I scrolled through my phone, looking at Lyndon's and my photos together. 4 amazing months gone in an instant. How could he just discard me like that over something that didn't even affect him? 2 days into what should have been our Bali vacation, my rage had reached a boiling point. Lyndon had started posting paradise photos on Instagram. Sunrise yoga on the beach, fancy dinners, that infinity pool we'd talked about. Each notification was like a knife twisting in my chest. He's posting all these vacation photos like nothing happened. I fumed to Quinn over drinks. We'd met up at a bar downtown where I was downing margaritas like water, like I never even existed. What a complete jerk, she agreed, signaling the bartender for another round. I still can't believe he freaked out over your OnlyFans. It's 2025 for crying out loud. Everyone's got a side hustle. That's when Quinn leaned in, lowering her voice conspiratorially. You know what would serve him right? If he came back to find his precious apartment trashed. Under normal circumstances, I might have dismissed the idea immediately. But 4 margaritas deep with Lyndon's latest beachfront selfie still burning in my mind, it didn't sound that crazy. The next day, I called Lyndon's building manager and explained that I needed to collect the rest of my belongings from my boyfriend's apartment while he was out of town. I put on my sweetest voice, explained how we'd had a pre-trip fight, and batted my eyelashes when he met me in the lobby. He let me in without question. I hadn't come alone. Quinn and 2 other friends were waiting in the car, and once the coast was clear, I texted them to come up. We stood in Lyndon's perfectly clean apartment, looking around at the life we'd been building together until just days ago. What happened next was a blur of righteous fury. We didn't completely destroy the place. We weren't monsters, but we made our presence known. Sharpie on his bathroom mirror. Hope she was worth it. Empty wine bottles carefully arranged on his pristine white couch. His designer clothes pulled from their neat hanging positions and left crumpled on the floor. The pièce de résistance was when Quinn suggested we order the most expensive champagne to be delivered to his apartment in Bali, with a note saying, "Enjoying your vacation? We sure enjoyed your apartment." We put it on his credit card. I still had the number memorized from all those times he'd handed it to me for shopping. As we left, giggling and high on adrenaline, I felt powerful for the first time since he'd walked out. This would show him that Eliza wasn't just some girl he could discard when she didn't meet his precious moral standards. The satisfaction lasted about 5 days. 5 days of imagining his face when he returned home. 5 days of fantasizing about the panic he'd feel, knowing I could access his apartment whenever I wanted. Then on day 6, my phone exploded with notifications. My mom calling repeatedly. Quinn texting in all caps. Unknown numbers flooding my messages. "Call me now," Quinn's text read. "Lyndon's back early and he has security footage of us in his apartment." My hands shook as I dialed her number. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't due back for another week. "He installed cameras after his place got broken into last year," Quinn said, her voice tight with panic. "He's got everything, Eliza. Everything. Us breaking in, the champagne order, all of it. And he's threatening to go to the police." I felt like I might throw up. "That's impossible. He's in Bali for another week. He came back early. Something about a family emergency. His mom called him after." "After what?" I demanded, my heart pounding. Quinn's voice dropped to a whisper. "After he sent her some of your OnlyFans content." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "He did what?" "His mom called you, right? Those unknown numbers blowing up your phone. That's her, and apparently all her church friends. He sent them your stuff after you guys kept calling him in Bali." I remembered the conversation with his mother vaguely. I'd called her the day after Lyndon left, playing the devastated girlfriend, conveniently leaving out the OnlyFans situation. I'd told her Lyndon had suddenly changed his mind about us for no apparent reason. I'd manipulated her, trying to get her on my side, and now my content was being passed around by his mother's prayer group. The humiliation was complete. I immediately tried calling Lyndon, but it went straight to voicemail. Next, I texted him. "We need to talk. What you did is illegal." His response came seconds later. "So was breaking into my apartment and vandalizing it. Not to mention credit card fraud for the champagne. I have all the evidence, Eliza." My fingers flew across the screen. "You had no right to show those pictures to your mother, and you had no right to lie to her about why we broke up," he replied. "You tried to make me the villain. I just showed her the truth." I was crying now, mascara running down my face. "Please don't go to the police," I texted. "I'm sorry about your apartment." I was angry. 3 dots appeared as he typed, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. "I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but I want you to know that actions have consequences. Eliza, you're learning that the hard way right now." I called my mom, desperate for some comfort, but her normally warm voice was strained. "Eliza," she said quietly, "I got some very disturbing emails today from Lyndon's mother." My stomach dropped even further. "Mom, I can explain." "Please tell me these aren't really you," she said, her voice cracking. "Please tell me my daughter hasn't been doing this online." I couldn't lie to her. Not now. Not with everything falling apart. "Mom, it was just a way to make money after I lost my job. It's not a big deal these days." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, she spoke in a whisper. "I raised you better than this, Eliza. I don't even know who you are anymore." The next morning, I woke up to a formal email from Lyndon's lawyer. It detailed all the evidence they had against me, the security footage, the credit card fraud, the building manager's statement, and outlined what charges they could press. But then came the offer. If I signed a formal apology, agreed to pay for all damages, and promised never to contact Lyndon or any member of his family again, he wouldn't take legal action. The letter concluded with a personal note from Lyndon. "I really cared about you, Eliza. I would have given you anything if you'd just been honest with me. But you chose deception, and then you chose revenge when you got caught." I signed the papers with shaking hands and emptied most of my savings to pay for the damages. My OnlyFans account, the source of all this trouble, I deleted completely. Not that it mattered now. The content was already circulating among people who had once respected me. 3 months later, I was working at a call center, living in a tiny studio apartment I could barely afford. My friends had slowly distanced themselves after the legal threats. Turns out they didn't want to risk their reputations or jobs after all. My mom was speaking to me again, but things remained strained. Meanwhile, Lyndon had moved on spectacularly. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard he'd gotten a promotion and moved to a better apartment. There were even rumors he was dating someone new, someone successful and honest, according to the gossip. One night, scrolling through social media against my better judgment, I saw a photo of him with his arm around a pretty brunette. They were at some charity gala, both dressed up and beaming at the camera. He looked happier than he ever had with me. The caption read, "When you find someone who shares your values, everything else falls into place." I shut my phone off and stared at the ceiling of my tiny apartment, finally facing the truth I'd been running from. I had done this to myself. Not just the losing Lyndon part, but all of it. The lying, the hiding, the revenge that backfired, the bridges burned. And the worst part, if I could go back to that moment when he handed me his credit card, or when he first mentioned wanting a traditional relationship, or even when he caught me with the OnlyFans notification, if I could redo any of those moments with honesty instead of deception, everything might have turned out differently. But I couldn't go back. I could only go forward, carrying the hard lesson that shortcuts and secrets might seem easier in the moment, but in the end they cost you everything that matters. I thought I'd found the one, but I'd lost him through my own choices, and that was a reality I had to live with every day.